Just a few short years ago, Cape Townians were amazed by the arrival of a small farm right in the heart of the city. The Oranjezicht city farm would soon grow to become one of Cape Townians' favorite places to visit and learn, and of course, source of great organic food. I had the opportunity to sit down with one of the founders, Sheryl Ozinsky. Join me as I speak to her. So Sheryl, firstly, welcome to the show and thank you for talking to me. It's such a great pleasure to have you here. I have to tell you, when I first thought about who am I going to interview on my show at all, you were the first name on my list.
Well, you know we're born on the same day, right?
We are born on the same day.
I have to be first on your list.
Maybe I had a bias, but why you were first on the list, I must admit, I was thinking back in the day you were in fact the city tourism manager.
Yes.
And everyone loved that, and everyone remembers you from those days. But of course, nowadays you've got a much bigger, and I think probably a bit of a more important project on the go.
You know, it's interesting that we're sitting here because I was the manager of Cape Town Tourism, and then I went back into tourism after a long period of doing my own consulting, and I went back and it didn't feel right, and things went horribly wrong in my life. And I came to you at the time and I said to you, Rod, I love tourism, but this isn't right for me.
Yes.
And I need to get out. And you said to me, Sheryl, there is something bigger and better. And it took 5 years for me to find that something bigger and better. And I sat one day at home and I remembered your words and I realized how right you were. And that is just to say that at the time I thought there isn't anything bigger there.
What could there be?
What could there be? I had no clue that I would be involved in farming and nutrition and food security and community engagement and economic development and skills development, and I had no clue, and education.
Yeah.
And yet your words came true. So maybe I willed your words to come true. I don't know.
Well, either way, the end result is a good result because we're sitting at the Oranjezicht City Farm, a project that, how long has this been going?
So we'll be 4 years old in 2012 November we started. So we'll be 5 years old this year in November.
So 5 years this year. Wow, time has flown. And in that time, you've really, really grown. So start off by telling us, what is this farm?
Right, so this is a community city farm where we grow about 112 varieties of fruit and vegetables. We grow
I didn't know there were 112
there
varieties.
More. At the market we sell over 300 varieties. Wow. And the point about this farm is that there are two things about it. If you use neglected space, the likelihood of people loving it and protecting it is higher than if it is left neglected. So this was an original farm dating back 300 years.
Wow.
Then it became a bowling green when the city literally demolished the incredibly old and beautiful Van Breda homestead in 1955,
wow,
which was a tragedy in itself. And they laid out 2 bowling greens, one here and one next door at Stepping Stone School. And bowling was popular for about 50 years, and then people moved away and passed away, and the fields here were left neglected. And at the time, I had a terrible incident happen to me at my home. I was attacked, Kaz, my partner and I, on a Sunday morning. We had just moved into Oranjezicht from Rosebank where we live. And it was a big awakening for me because I realized that nobody looked after the community. Everybody built higher and higher walls, and nobody looked after public spaces or the sense of community. And there was no community, to be honest. There was nobody working with the police, nobody was reporting crime statistics, nobody was making sure that trees were planted or that roads were repaired or that there were events to bring the community together here, which makes for a great community. That is what all our cities and all our neighborhoods should be like. People engaging with one another. Even arguing is better than nothing, to be honest with you.
So, I mean, it's partially because you lived in Oranjezicht that this was the place, but also because there was that vacant land.
Well, I helped to start a neighborhood watch. and we grew the Neighborhood Watch into a really effective organization. Contact crimes like what happened to Kaz and I, they're rare occurrences. We're in the city, so you're going to hear some noises,
Yes,
guys.
and then we are like, this is the real world. Rod Suskin's world takes place in the world. So we like being here.
Truck of the city of Cape Town.
Yes, doing its job. We like that.
But contact crime doesn't happen that much anymore because the community is involved. We raised R1 million. We've got license plate recognition cameras. We patrol. We're involved. And it's not only the way forward for an affluent community. These neighborhood watches have been rolled out now in more disadvantaged communities around South Africa, and they are proving to be real crime fighters. But crime in itself and making a place safe is only the beginning of engaging a community. Once it's safe, there are many, many other ways that the community needs to be involved, and farming and growing food is one of them, because everyone loves to eat.
Of course.
And food is a unifier. It breaks down barriers, and it brings people together like no other medium.
And everyone wants it and everyone needs it.
Exactly.
But now, so we're in the middle of Oranjezicht, in the middle of that community, but it's not the people of Oranjezicht who are growing the vegetables.
So initially we called for volunteers, and people came out in the hundreds, not only from Oranjezicht, but this project had appeal beyond from many other neighborhoods around South Africa, and in fact the world. We have visitors coming here now because we're kind of well known, relatively well known. We have people coming here from all over the world every day. So initially we called for volunteers, they came out, and then we realized that the volunteers would be great, but that they wouldn't come out in the winter months, they wouldn't come out when there's a burst pipe, they wouldn't come out when the market needed some vegetables to sell, and they needed to be harvested at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we needed to employ farmers, and we employed one farmer initially. Now we employ 3 farmers full-time, and a manager, and somebody looking after the admin of the farm. So there are 5 people employed here, and about 12 people employed at the market, some full-time, some not full-time. There are 200 people at the market, traders whose livelihoods depend on the market. It's adding a lot of money to the economy of South Africa. But okay, let's come back now to where I was. So we realized that we needed to employ farmers, and then I was handing out money from my own pocket because it was costing me 15,000, 20,000 rand a month, which I didn't have. And I thought, I can appeal for donations, but that's not going to be sustainable. We need an income source here. So let's start a little market. I was never really thinking that my life would be a market. We started a little market in the park. It grew. We broke a wall in a southeaster when we attached the guy rope of the tent. The city went ballistic. I think a bit too crazy, to be honest. They then told us we couldn't put up tents. Without tents, you can't really operate a market. We closed the market. Somebody tweeted to Helen Ziller that the market should move to Luanoff. We moved there. We had no gap of a Saturday.
Yeah.
The Premier was unbelievable. She made things happen, even though we had to jump through so many hoops to operate at Luanoff, and half her cabinet had to do the same.
Really? And the people of Cape Town loved that.
And it was
such
incredible.
a rave. Yeah.
I mean, swimming in the Premier's pool,
exactly.
having the tennis court available, sitting on the lawns. People would come from overseas and said, "This is the governor's house?"
Exactly, the governor's mansion.
What? You're doing a market here? They couldn't believe it.
But it really symbolized Cape Town inclusivity so well.
Yeah, that is the incredible thing about a premier like Helen Ziller, who makes things happen, and who, it's first about making things happen. Now tell me why it can't happen and make it happen.
Exactly.
As opposed to it can't happen because of. And there is so much bureaucracy in our city, and yet the people suffer because of it. So our city really needs leadership that is can-do leadership, making things happen in our parks, in our communities. And this is an example. Nobody, Rod, should be unemployed. If you have vacant land like we do, thousands of acres in our communities, people can grow food. Yes, water is an issue, but there are boreholes and there are other ways. We don't need a lot of water.
What do you do for water here?
So what do we do for water? So there are springs at the bottom of the farm here that run into the sea every day. Thousands of liters of good water. gone to the sea.
Right.
So that needs to change. We're using the collection chamber. The spring is actually at the back there. And there are 35 springs like this in the city bowl, all collecting thousands of liters of water. In Prince Street, where the pump is, that's where residents of the city bowl could go and
Get their water.
dry the swipe pump, get their water. Now imagine if we could bring that back, and there's no reason why we can't. Make the spring, the pump work, let residents, like we go in Newlands to the breweries, collect water to drink.
And it's such delicious water. So you say there are 37 pumps in the 35 pumps.
Underground springs.
And most of them are still exiting in the sea.
Most of them are exiting in the sea. The city's using some of the water in the Greenpoint Park, but not much.
Wow.
So it's possible.
Yeah.
To change. We're using potable water to irrigate here. We should be pumping the spring water to 2 big tanks on the slope here, and then pumping that into the drip irrigation system.
So that's in the pipeline
that's
somewhere.
in the pipeline. We're hoping, but the water needs to be permitted because it's a national heritage site. The city needs to help us get the water here.
Some more bureaucracy.
So there's some red tape involved, but a borehole can cost 50 to 60,000 rand. Most of Cape Town, I've been speaking now to the borehole people, they say there's water. So you can create boreholes everywhere. And if you farm like this, small-scale farming, where you're planting multiple crops in one bed, the one crop shades the other crop, you're mulching a lot, you can see all the hay so that you prevent evaporation.
Right.
You are planting water-wise crops. You are consolidating your bed so that you're not spread out in a big area that you have to irrigate. You're collecting water in big tanks from the rain, off gutters. There are so many things that you can do to be water wise.
Wasn't there a bit of a controversy when you first started, where people were talking about the underground water in Cape Town, which comes right under this property, and therefore you shouldn't be growing on it, or something like that?
Look, I mean, that is a I don't see the reasoning behind that whatsoever. You know, the underground water is running through the city. There's much worse things happening than growing some food on a spring.
Yeah, and you've got to weigh out
like
the benefits.
Thousands of buildings, like pesticides being, used throughout on fields and rugby fields and everywhere. This is helping the spring, to be honest.
So you've gotten a lot more than just the people of Oranjezicht involved in. So you've got farmers from all around in the province contributing
so initially
their product.
we needed some vegetables to sell at our market, and we involved 1 or 2 farmers. And then the market moved to the Premier's house, and from there it got very wet in the winter, so we had to find a place for the winter months. The Premier wanted us to come back in the summer, but we found this incredible spot at the waterfront overlooking the sea. It was originally a site for waste to be dumped, and it was terribly smelly and ugly, but we fixed it up, and thanks to the waterfront for seeing the vision.
Yeah.
And now we have a 3-year lease there. And we're kind of pretty settled because we need fridges, we need tents that don't get taken down every Saturday.
Right.
And we've created jobs for over 200 people.
Wow. And you get a lot of visitors there.
We get nearly 6,000 on a good day. But it didn't start like that. It took us a long time to build this thing. You know, I remember starting here with a hay bale and a box of grapes and no one coming. And I had to go to the market in Hope Street and ask them please to let me sell them outside so that I could at least pay the farmer. So everything starts slowly in Cape Town, and it takes a long time to get to where we are now.
I mean, it is true that, we say that about Cape Town, it is true about Cape Town, but I think also people really started to get it, that they obviously must be responding to the food itself.
That is true, but I often wonder why it's not more mainstream, that people want to eat good food that is nutritious and grown without chemicals, that is good for their bodies. Why doesn't everybody want to eat that way?
Yeah.
It shocks me that there's so much obesity and disease in our society. And the first thing to change that is what you eat.
So is it a question of education or access to that food?
I think it's education. I think it's first and foremost education. I think people really don't know, and I think that there's a lot of people to blame. I think if we have to cast blame, some of the retailers, we need to ask questions about where their food is coming from and how it's grown, and some of them are better than others. We need to ask the government questions. If food is a human right like it is, as written in the Constitution, then operationally, why is not more being done to get nutritious food to the people? 1 in 5 South Africans is what we call food insecure, meaning that they don't have access to nutritious food. So they're buying what's cheap, and that is high in sugar and devoid of any calories that help people to develop their potential as human beings. And this is a real problem for our country. We need skills, we need people to develop and to realize their full potential. And if I was the government, I would be creating healthy farms in every community. I would be subsidizing these farms.
It sounds like a no-brainer.
I would be subsidizing markets.
Yeah.
And they are, it's a no-brainer because it is being done in other parts of the world.
And
take Barcelona.
It must be cheaper than huge, big industrial food
Well,
things.
if you take the true cost of medical care and you put that into farming, you're going to save a lot of money because you're going to have healthier people. And diabetes and all of these diseases and cancer, it's definitely related to the food we eat. I'm not saying in all instances, but
it makes a big difference.
It makes a difference. So Barcelona, here's the model in Barcelona. 47 markets funded by the city of Barcelona, the salaries of the staff and the infrastructure, all over Barcelona. Poor and rich all shop at markets. Wherever they live, they go every day and they shop at markets. They buy direct from farmers. It's cost effective and they get access to healthy food. But it is supported by the city because the city understands that a market like we are running now, it doesn't always make financial sense. People come there to me to say, wow, you seem to be making a lot of money. It's not true. No. The cost and the amount that we're paying the farmers is fair. I rather take a loss. So this week we have no market on this Saturday. I know that it's going to be screened later. So Saturday the 11th of Feb, no market. Why? Because there's a massive event in the waterfront, a triathlon, and all the roads are closed. A farmer who I deal with every week from Basilhof Farm in George, he's now producing tomatoes. Sheryl, I need to send you. I've got 100 kilograms of tomatoes. I can't keep them back for the triathlon. Send me your tomatoes. Rob, send me. Now I've got 100 kilograms of tomatoes in my fridge at the waterfront that I'm literally taking around to sell. And it takes huge effort to do that. Yeah. It takes huge effort. It's not 2 kilograms, it's 100 kilograms.
So you've got no support from the city?
And there are many stories like that.
Yeah.
Well, the city, for example, supports us here. They don't charge us rent on this farm. And that's useful.
That's amazing.
But I'm saying a lot more could be done, and not only here. The city could say, Oranjezicht City Farm, you guys have learnt. Come and show us. Come and help other communities to do the same. We'll support you. Me and all my colleagues, we've had to have other jobs because we earn very little here. So we're trying to do this in our spare time. I've now given up everything because I just love what I do.
Yeah.
And luckily, I'm paid a little bit, and luckily
But the reward...
I'm old and I've got some money spare, but it's not
the reward
case
is
with
worth
everybody.
it. It's the reward of what you're doing is meaningful.
But you still got to live.
You've got to live. Are there other suburbs or communities at all that have farms?
So we tried quite a lot to get this to happen, and I think there are a couple. Tilbach was the first. There's a beautiful project there called Dream Tilbach, run by Jason Clark, a wonderfully innovative young man who's also written a thesis on the historic Church Street development in the homes in Tilbach. But it takes a special kind of person to do this. Many other communities have tried. I say to them, if you don't plan to give up your life, then don't start, because it is a life change.
It is. Like farming itself.
We've given up a lot, all of us that are involved in this project. We don't have a lot of downtime. We don't have people coming for supper anymore. I don't have a lot of friends. I used to go to my sister every Friday night for dinner. I can't because I'm up twice a week now at 3 in the morning, including Saturdays. We're on our feet till 5 in the afternoon. We are exhausted.
So what drives that? If it's not a big salary, and what drives the willingness to do that?
I think we're driven by the knowledge that we are making a difference. People come there, they say, for the first time we're eating correctly. You can't believe how you've changed our lives, they tell us. That is rewarding. Our farmers are growing. We started with one farmer, we've now got 29 farmers farming all over the Western Cape, making a living, enjoying what they're doing, being kind to the earth. We've written 2 books that we've paid for from the market. It's cost over 700,000 Rand,
Wow.
2 books. One on the history of Oranjezicht by Patricia Davison and Adrian Falb, one by Leonie Yobera on this farm.
And that one you've just launched
That one
just the
we've
other
just
day.
launched, thanks to the Book Lounge and Jacana Media for helping us with that. And these are legacies that we're leaving to the people of Cape Town. So, when I die one day, I want to know that I've lived, I've done stuff so that I can go in peace.
Well, this is the kind of thing that's going to live a lot longer than you. I mean, people are going to come to Cape Town and they're going to see this long, long, long after. Maybe they won't even remember where it came from.
Exactly.
So, from your own input and point of view, what is the future? What is the next step? I mean, the farm itself can't grow because this is the full extent of its land. And as farms go, it's small. But you've got a lot of inputs.
So we are working on other projects. We've started a trust called the South African Food and Urban Farming Trust. A couple of colleagues and myself, and we have another project at Oranjezicht Hospital in Mitchell's Plain, which is a hectare of land. It's 4 times the size. It's big, and there are 2 farmers farming there that we are helping to support through grants from the government and through money that we've helped to raise. And the idea being that we create another market there for the people of Mitchell's Plain who can come. The unique thing about the Oranjezicht Hospital project is under the supervision of Dr. John Parker, who is a psychiatrist. Psychiatric patients are working in the garden, and it's been very well documented. The impact on mental health of working in a garden. So we're hoping that John's work will become more mainstream, that many other hospitals will have food gardens. We're also working at the level of schools. We've got a project down the road here that we're trying to unlock on a hectare of land at Good Hope Seminary with views that are almost better than this. Disadvantaged children at the school, working to create a food garden with an educational component. We have a strong educational component here, but we believe that it can grow and develop, have a full-on environmental education center, and work with children to understand eating and eating correctly and nutrition and growing food. We have another book in the pipeline that we want to do, a recipe book showing from farm to table, the entire process and cycle. We want to work with more farmers. We want to start a culinary academy so that we can have food from farm to table. We want to work more with chefs, because really the chefs, they say initially that the restaurants were the heroes, then the chefs became the heroes.
Yes.
Now the ingredients are the heroes. And so we want chefs to really understand the power of fresh ingredients, like they're doing at Blue Hill in New York with Dan Barber, who's got a restaurant in New York, and he's innovating in terms of the crops that they're growing. They also are innovating in terms of their menu. So instead of, we use cover crops here to put nitrogen back in the soil, but then we plow it back, and the chefs aren't using cover crops. So imagine if we could use cover crops, creating menus. And Dan Barber's doing that, new strains of wheat. And in actual fact, Koos Becker at Babylon's Turin is an incredible hero of this country that I think needs acknowledgement beyond Nationale Pers and the shareholders' value.
Sure.
Because he is a man that really understands the power of food and how people love to know more about plants and this incredible, rich abundance of vegetation that we have locally that is celebrated at Kirstenbosch, and all around us, of course, but people still don't know enough.
The potential of what you're doing is way bigger than you could ever have possibly imagined.
Yes, and that's why there's a burning desire from us to do more and more. And that's why we get up in the morning, because we kind of see the vision.
Well, nothing comes for nothing, and I mean, as look, farming itself is hard work. There was never a time where this was going to be easy. But I
Exactly.
think rather than measuring it by the hard work, measuring it by the impact and the difference it makes, and way beyond the community of Oranjezicht. I mean, from where you've gone. In the beginning, I remember everyone was thinking, does this mean you're supplying the restaurants in Oranjezicht, they're one or two? But it's just gone so much bigger than that. And I think, there are people watching this anywhere in the country, not just in the Cape, who are the kind of people who think we can do that here. So I think you're going to be hearing from them on your Facebook
I
page.
hope so, Rod. You're telling me that there are lots of people that watch this, so I'm looking forward
There are
to.
lots of people that watch, and
Call
there's,
me. I'll
yeah,
give you my number if you want. Happy to help, but no. And if you make that call, you've got to be serious because this is life-changing if you get into something like this.
Sheryl. And of course, don't forget to like our own Rod Suskins World Facebook page while you're about it as well. You can still win a copy of that book, Soul Life. And I'll see you here again next week, the usual time, 12 on YouTube, 7:30 p.m.